What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to talk about some big news that's come out involving Tesla and Cathie Wood. What you should be watching for in terms of the share prices moving forward. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, as far as Tesla's going, this is dipping a little bit during the pre-market session, back down to about that 420 support. And then the support below that is going to be very close to our previous all-time high near 414. So I'm going to call out these levels because is some negative news coming out, but I want to kind of clarify a lot of things about it and talk about what's happening with the data that just came out. So the first thing worth mentioning is that there's a lot of headlines right now that Cathie Wood has trimmed her Tesla position, selling $21.8 million worth of stock. And, it's making all the headlines right now. This is a huge piece of news. And just know, guys, this is not necessarily a surprise because you have to remember that when there's companies that are running this hard, it's completely normal for these funds managers to sell a part of their position, take some profits, and start repositioning. That's completely normal because $21.8 million is very minor compared to the $1.14 billion that Ark is actually still holding right here. It actually has a 16.25% weight in the overall company. So it just goes to show that this is still their number one holding and doesn't really change anything. So I find it very interesting how these mainstream news sources just keep on screaming that she's selling, she's selling, she's selling. They don't really show us the true numbers. They don't show us how much ARK is or ARK is actually holding. So just keep that in mind. She's still holding the large majority of her shares, and don't see that as a reason to discourage you if anything like that. If she does sell a little bit, that is completely normal, and there's no surprises right over there. Now, when it comes to more pieces of data, just know that today is Thursday, December 12th, 2024. The thing is, we got the PPI report, and the numbers are not that good. PPI month over month was at 0.4%. That's somewhat above expectations. Core PPI month over month was as expected at 0.2%, however. And then initial jobless claims was a little bit high. Then we had core PPI year over year. This was at 3.4%, somewhat above expectations of 3.2%. And then last but not least, we had PPI year over year at the very bottom right here. So year over year was at 3%. This is above the consensus in the forecast. So there is an increase in inflationary numbers, at least so far, from the producer price index. We'll have to see if CPI follows this trend going into the next month because this data does tend to be forward looking. So please be careful, guys. Not the best of news, at least thus far. That's why the market's dipping just a bit. We'll have to see what kind of reaction we get, at least moving forward, if this continues or not. And then when it comes to other pieces of data, just know that we have very minor data coming out in terms of earnings. We do have Costco after market close, but besides that, there's not much else. So PPI was a little bit hot. We do have Trump, who is going to be ringing the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange. So we'll see how that affects things. And we'll be very, very patient nonetheless. But just know that for now, Tesla's going to be testing this 420 support. If that does not hold, we could be dipping closer to where the previous all-time high was, around this 414 area. And then if that does not hold, there's going to be a risk of us potentially dipping lower all the way down to this next support around 405. So I'll be watching each of these supports very, very closely just to see how well Tesla tries to hold up. So watch 420. Let's see if that holds. Otherwise, we could be dipping closer to 414. If that fails us, there's going to be a risk of us getting closer to about, the 405 area. If anything, there's a risk of this dipping a little bit lower, at least for now, because of PPI and also because of the news about Cathie Wood. So watch 420. We'll see if that holds. Otherwise, it could get closer to 414. But even if Tesla does dip just a little bit, it could still bounce. We're still on a very, very nice uptrend if you zoom out like this. So it's going to be completely fine. As long as we don't lose like 400, we're going to be completely fine. So there could be a small dip coming before it attempts to rebound. Let's just hope that we hold at least around 414. For SPY, notice that this is dipping. I did call this out yesterday. I was expecting some kind of dip, technically speaking. Now we're looking at 605.5 as the main support. We'll have to see if that holds. If not, we could be returning to 604. So we'll see if we get some kind of bounce in this range or not. If we break 607.5, we're looking for 608. But for now, look for a little bit of a dip that could be coming, at least in this area between 605.5 around that range. We'll have to see if we get a bounce off that or not. If we don't bounce off 605.5, we could dip a little bit more before we see some kind of bounce later on. So just keep that in mind. Might be a small dip coming. We do have Trump who will be ringing the bells. So we'll see if he affects things or not. But just know that there is that risk. For other factors out there, we have ES. ES has support around 60.76. If that fails us, we're looking for 60.67 below that. And we'll see if we get some kind of bounce or not. So look for a small dip right here around 60.76. Let's hope we get a rebound later on. We have two supports at 60.76 and 60.67. In this range, we might see some buyers defend and try to push us back up to 60.80 plus. Eventually, right back up to these higher levels. But look for a small dip initially before we get to that bigger move. Even Nvidia is coming down a little bit. As you guys can see, we're in a range right now. We have tough resistance around the lower 140s, and we have the support around 135. We might be dipping to 137 and 135, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But just be mindful of the fact that there could be a small dip coming closer to the 135s before it tries to bounce. So look for a little bit more downside on Nvidia, at least for the pre-market session, and look at support at 137.13 and 135, and we'll see if we get some kind of bounce from here. For Bitcoin, we're range bound. Right here, we have 102,000 and 100,000 as our support going back and forth. Bitcoin might attempt to retest 101 and 1,500, but it could be dipping close to about 99,350 before it tries to bounce again. I do see a risk of that potentially panning out. For a few more, we have NQ, which is dipping right here. We have this resistance around 21,750 and support 21,600. Might dip closer to 21,600 before it tries to bounce. There's a little dip that's coming here. It's testing previous resistance becoming support. Once again, we're looking at the 20 EMA as our support. For the QQQ, we could be dipping lower. We're going to be looking for essentially 526 as support. If that does not hold, look at 524, followed by 520. I think we might be dipping a little bit towards like 520, the 526 to 524 area. We'll see if we bounce off that or not, but look for a little bit more downside, just a bit more before anything else. Apple might retest 245 before it tries to rebound as well, so it might dip a little bit more before we get that move. If you look at the IWM, we're still in this channel, so this could be dipping a little bit lower as long as it continues like this. There's no sign of a breakout yet, so it does favor that might kind of like pop and start dipping a little bit towards like 235. For coin, we're flat here. We're going to be looking for a test of 312 or maybe a little bit lower to like 309. We'll see if we bounce or not off that support. Might be a small dip before it tries to rebound. As long as it makes a higher low, though, it could try to rebound. So we'll see about that. But just be a little bit mindful of coin. For others out there, we have Amazon. Amazon pushed to 230. It's a tough resistance. We need to break above that. Otherwise, there's going to be a risk of us hitting 227.8 and then 225. This could be a dip here before it attempts to rebound, a small one. So just keep that in mind. For Meta, we could be dipping closer to about 625 to 620 before it attempts to rebound again. It's still bullish overall. Microsoft also could get closer to about 444 to 446, a little bit of a dip before it attempts to bounce. It's still holding up very nicely. And then last but not least, we also happen to have Google. It's dipping a bit here. Could be retesting 192.5 or so. It came just under my 200 target, so look for a little dip before it attempts to rebound. Anyways, that's it for my video. I'll make this one nice, short, sweet, and simple. Tesla is holding up decently, but look for a test of this 420 area. We'll see if this holds or not. We'll see if, Trump ringing the bell will have somewhat of an effect on the markets. But besides that, I just wanted to say that we're just waiting to see, what kind of reaction we get. PPI was not that great. And there's not really much else that's coming out for the rest of the day, just a couple of bill auctions. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in a couple of hours for another update. Thank you and peace out.